All right. What is up, everybody? All right. If you got questions, now's the time. Gather some reference. Try to mix it up.
Hey, Anthony. I just have a question about what you said earlier.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
Let's do it.
I mean, uh, for example, for yourself, what is the best reference for a quality of polishment thing?
Got it. So I have like a folder called collections, and I'll put it into the Skype. Okay. But here I actually have one that's called quality. And these are pretty good examples of all sorts. I have qualities for just like straight up painting.
Mm-hmm.
I have quality. Oops. I have quality for like more a little bit more stylized painting. Right. Wow, this guy's got even more dope stuff. I got quality for like just hyper realism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even look at this stuff just for like 3D. Like I'm talking about just can I paint something this good? You know, like just paint it, let alone like using 3D. You understand?
Yeah.
I got like illustrative quality, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I got like anatomical quality. Now this will be different for it didn't pop up, but there's different stuff for everybody, right? Atmospheric, environmental, lighting. But the idea is that when you look at the quality images, you're looking at it as a tool to match.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you're not looking at it as necessarily like let's say I'm doing quality and I'm not necessarily looking at this to paint like a spider creature in the desert or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at like maybe the creature rendering and like how effective it looks. You know?
Yeah.
So for me, lately I've been focusing less on quality. I've been focusing more on style.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm trying to level up this because my quality is pretty good. I think that I have a pretty strong sense of quality. It could get better. There's no mistake there either. But my point is that like how can I get more style and then probably in the next year or even sooner than that, I'm gonna start focusing back in on quality again, and then I'm gonna like potentially be a monster artist. You know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's funny, this image right here, I was just having dreams about how I could do this, which is like forced perspective. I literally was dreaming about it. I was dreaming about like I got like a model, I threw it into like a 3D software that I can control the focal length of the camera, and I was like distorting it and seeing if I can get better at that. Because I don't force perspective enough, and that's a cool tactic. I don't know how to even begin force perspective. I have some idea, but I don't know. But that's another thing that I'll try to practice. But yeah, those are the examples that I would start with.
Yeah. Thanks.
But the point that it should be that I can't really reiterate enough is that you know people always say, "Well, I don't know what like how far I can push my work." If you have artists that you admire, then you do know how far you can push your work.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to admit that they are people that you should be competing with. You know. And the reality is that although I'm your instructor, I am also your competition. I have a great story. I went to an event called GDC and I applied for a job with uh, Insomniac Games,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Sorry, we already gave the job to somebody else." And I was like, "Oh, that's all good, man." And they're like, "We really like your work, though, but like the person that we hired, his name is Carlo Aurelino. He's a really good artist. I don't know if you know him." And when he told me that name, you guys might not know who Carlo is. I actually shared one of his stuff with you guys in the class, one of his classes. He used to be my instructor, right? So it's kind of like a moment where I was like, "Oh yeah, like my bosses can also be, they could also work. Why wouldn't they be working?"
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting.
Like, so I'm your boss too. Like, if you applied for a company that I also applied with, that's something to consider.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, which might make you more depressed, but don't be. Because there's plenty of other jobs out there too, you know. And the same is true for me. Obviously, like I'm competing against some of my greatest idols, you know, constantly. So yeah, this forced perspective stuff is pretty fun. I need to do more of it. I'm not very good at it. Let me see if I can get some more examples. This guy stuff's the best though. Daniel Clark. Oh wow, that's really cool. Oh, clever. Um, Sergi does this stuff too, man. OG, man. You guys aren't seeing what I'm looking at, but I'm just going through my reference boards. Anyway, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one. It's about how to put this. Basically, I saw a tweet the other day from an indie game director, and he was saying he's been reviewing concept art portfolios, and he was like, it would be nice to see more originality, because he's like, concept art's getting very standardized in terms of like the subject and the style.
Totally.
But yeah, I just remember thinking, well, like I agree with him, but at the same time, I was like, if you're like me, like someone who's you're like, well, I've never had a job before, and all the artists I look up to, and like what seems to be what the industry wants, seems to be along the lines of that standardized stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? How do I put it? Basically, the question is kind of like, as someone who like hasn't had like these kind of art jobs before and just trying to get in there, do you think it's more important to be like very like competent at sort of the established popular styles, or to maybe like what this guy said, really push with some original designs and presentation of your art and so on?
So what was the context of his tweet?
I'll show
In
you. It's
general?
yeah. I'll
Just
get
in
it up.
general, he's saying that he's just like concept art is all generic.
Not necessarily. He had how do you call it? He saw like he posted up like 4 or 5. Put it in Skype. He posted like 4 or 5 paintings, which he's like clearly were inspired by like a Sergei painting. And then he was saying he's seeing
Yeah.
this a lot where like people are just inspired by like ArtStation. He's like asking people to be inspired by other things.
This is the art director of the last night. That game got canceled. And that game is pretty dope though. The game looks fucking amazing. So here's the whole thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and read this. I'll read it live. Reviewing many concept artists' portfolio lately. Cool, bro. Honestly, it would be nice to see more originality in style, color, framing. I regret the standardization of art. The best concept artists usually get their inspiration elsewhere than their peers on ArtStation. Also, all of these were probably inspired by one of the. By the way, this is also not original. Someone else did something like this. So Sergey actually started somewhere else. The only thing he added was the mermaid, the epically large mermaid. But there's a classical painter who did the same kind of painting. Um, but he's not wrong. I'll talk about why he's not wrong and also why he's wrong. Okay, all of these were probably inspired by one way or another by this one painted 5 years ago. Yep. Art leads are too experienced to be fooled 99% of the time. We can immediately tell from which artist or tutorial a particular piece. This is exactly right. No need to hide it, rather show it as a training piece, but don't build an identity based on it. Yeah. I think I even told you guys that this is something you should be very cautious of. Like, I think it's a great way to start, right? To pick a thing, get good, feel confident, but then can eventually evolve, right? I think I used the example of where one artist that I admired, he couldn't paint chrome, or he probably can. I just didn't see an example of it. So then I couldn't paint chrome, and I realized that was a huge problem. Disclaimer, these are objectively good paintings, and I didn't tag the artist to not bring any unwanted attention. I was just making a point. And in general, is this like a reply? Is this someone talk some shit to
No,
me?
he's just saying I'm not talking shit about those other guys. Yeah.
I wonder if this is just, okay, sorry. Same trend happening in photography. Unfortunate consequence of internet accessibility. Let's all find inspiration further than ArtStation and the first Google image results.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I agree with them as well. I'm just
Okay.
curious: do you think this is something that also applies to like people who are just getting in as well? Because one of my knee-jerk reaction, which I don't know if it was right, was I felt this is something that becomes more important the more experience you get.
Yeah. So this is actually advice that I generally give. But the problem that he's the part that I'm critical of him is that he's not putting the caveat of the general, like, okay, so let me give you a good example of this. Like, I see a lot of people that will complain about there's not enough originality in Hollywood. Like, all the movies are the same, or the Hollywood blockbusters, they're all like this one kind of genre, right? But when unique movies come out, like for instance, Midsummer or Hereditary, which are very unique horror films, right? Nobody goes watches them, especially the people that make these complaints sometimes, which makes me even more aggravated, right? You got to understand, unique doesn't mean good. Does this make sense?
No, yeah, I agree with you. Like,
Yeah.
just because something's
it's
unique, yeah.
Yeah, just because it's different doesn't mean that it's actually any good. And just because it's different doesn't mean that it can't be good either. It's just same thing with generalizations. So the reason why general stuff and artwork and, like, things that do really well and the things that are very popular stick is because they do something that's really good, and then a majority of people like it. And if you keep doing that, you're just introducing more of that to more people, and that starts to become more and more popular. So if you look at like the superhero movies and what have you, right? The reason why they keep making them is because people keep watching them, and they'll stop when people stop watching them. You know what I mean? And you have to also understand that there's something that happens is that people get older, right? So something that maybe I saw like in a movie when I was a kid, right? Like this kind of story trope was first introduced to me for it, perhaps like in a movie like, I don't know, like Goonies, you know? Then when I see it again in a different type of movie, but now I'm an adult, I'm like, they keep telling the same story. But the reality is that was true even when I was a kid. You know what I mean? That they were telling probably something similar to my parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because no, I agree with you as well. Because the other thing I thought when I saw his tweet was, I was like, I understand, like, because I kind of agree with him. You could see some standardizations like style, but I was like, it's kind of like what you said. But at the same time, the industry generally doesn't. It's like what you said. What's popular is this standardized stuff, but for a reason, because it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And now the question. The question is, what do you think about it, right? So if you like that stuff too, then by all means do it. And in fact, I actually encourage you should have both. You should have something that is pretty general, like something that's pretty popular and some people actually like to see, right? And then you should do one that's a little bit more niche, or something that you think is cool. And the reality is that it's probably not going to do as well, and you might have some personal attachment to why it's cool, right?
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
you also have to be prepared that no one else is going to like it, you know. And the problem with perhaps this mentality that this other artist is having, and I'm not trying to knock him down, but like he might run into this problem inadvertently where he will potentially put something out that people like, or people think are unique, but it doesn't do well. Like he's looking to make millions of bucks, but it only makes hundreds of thousands of dollars because it's too niche. You understand? And then this same type of mentality, I see this all the time. The people start to be critical of the general like population, and they start to be overtly pretentious. I'm not saying that he did, actually. I don't think he has.
Yeah, just in general. Yeah.
I just think that it happens. It inevitably happens in these people's positions because they don't make things that sell at these like Transformers and Fast and the Furious and superhero movie levels. So they start to be super critical of these artists in these genres more than it starts to reveal their cards of their own insecurities, if that makes sense. And for me, if you like a very specific thing, like for instance, like I'm very well known for like drawing like really obscure abstract artwork. And a lot of my artwork does really well whenever I do that kind of stuff, like specifically like humanoid, like females, potentially like more like provocatively dressed with like monster limbs and helmets and something like this. Those do really well, and I understand why they do well too. It's because they are hitting a couple notes really well. They're hitting like the kind of like familiar part of it, where we see like a human figure, and they're also pushing some abstraction, and they're using very popular stuff like photography and black and white imagery to kind of to really sell those concepts, you know.
Yeah.
But whenever I separate myself, like so this image right here might not do as well, right? I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna paint it. I'm gonna do what I think is cool. I'm gonna put it out there, and people will be like, "Yeah, it's cool," right?
Yeah.
But I know that what's happening here is I'm trying to find what sticks, right? And when I do something that I feel that I can find what sticks, then I will expand upon it more and more. And if I really like something, then I don't care that it does poorly. I'll just keep painting it, you know?
Yeah.
But I will have the understanding that it's not portfolio type work. It's not going to get me jobs because although he's right, like it would be cool and like everyone knows like what you're doing. But if I'm making Modern Warfare, the new Modern Warfare, which is actually a thing, is coming out, like I'm gonna want to hire people who do military like soldier type artwork or like some more realistic paintings, and they might literally just be a carbon copy of the last artist who did that type of stuff. But it doesn't matter. That's the kind of artwork I need for my studio, you know.
Well, yeah, because it's
If
something.
I'm making the Lord of the Rings reboot,
Yeah.
it'll be really bizarre for me to like we're gonna do Lord of the Rings, but now we're gonna make it goth style. It's like, no, it's probably still gonna be that traditional like fantasy that we're all used to seeing, but just maybe a little bit more leveled up, maybe a little bit more polished. And I mean, it's gonna be hard. It was already really good, and so I would be shocked if they were to deviate quite a bit from that aesthetic, you know. And I don't think people would want them to anyway. So, and it's gonna do just fine. It's gonna make gangbusters, you know. And so, regardless of this like artistic integrity, so the artistic integrity is really just a superficial thing that lives within our own community. And so, like I remember when I was at Blizzard, people were complaining about the Ninja Turtles having nostrils, and I remember saying to them, Ninja Turtles is for kids. You're not a kid anymore, and you have to also remember these are giant mutated turtles who knew kung fu, who happen to be teenagers. I think having nostrils is the last of these creatures' concerns, you know. And you're really leading with nostalgia when you talk this way, the way that I thought about it, you know.
Mm.
And so, and there's nothing wrong if you love your nostalgic thing. It's just that it's not gone. You can always watch it. Like I think the same thing happened with Lion King. People are just like, they're casting all these different people. Like, why can't they just make original stuff? It's like because Lion King is one of the greatest stories ever told, and Disney wants to make money. Like, if you don't want to give them that money, then don't watch it. Like, why do you care what other people do? You know, like literally, like who cares what this mega corporation Disney does? You know, they can remake it again next year and I will not care. You know, like literally I will not care. Because if you're talking about like movies and stuff, you want to see original films and stuff, then you too, like this, if my advice to this art director would be, then like stop looking for artists like that, right? Like I guess he's not necessarily making that complaint, he's just talking about portfolios that are submitted to him, right? But if I was to, if he was like, it's hard to find, it's like the same advice goes to him, then stop going to ArtStation on loan, or dig deep into ArtStation, right?
Yeah.
Or go to countries that are underrepresented, like go to Africa, see if there's an artist there. Go to Syria, see if you could find a refugee who just somehow found out that concept art exists, or maybe not, they're just a freaking amazing artist and their culture and their influences make their art different than everyone else, right? Like it's the same idea. But I do agree with this argument, and I've actually I think I've taught you guys this. I go to Pinterest for a reference, not ArtStation, right? Because of that human centipede of problem. That is like a real thing, you know? He is not wrong. He's absolutely right. Like if you want to stand out, you got to get out of that world. And so I usually encourage you should do both. Like you should make work that can pander to a larger audience. You should make artwork that is what you really enjoy, like what you think is great, you know, and unique and interesting about the world of art. And then you should maybe do something right in between, something that sits right in the middle, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
Something that's not only fascinating from the perspective of like uniqueness, but it's also something that is more generalized. People can recognize and attach some sort of value to. Yeah, you could do both. But the biggest point here is that it should just be you should never be distracted by what other people are saying either. Like I think that's really good advice though, what he said. I don't want to I want to like add the caveat that he forgot to add, which is
Okay.
that generalized artwork is also good. Just because it's like everybody's doing it, right, doesn't mean inherently it's bad or it's not cool or it's not, like, even if it's still like something that people see a lot, it doesn't mean that it's bad artwork. And he even made that comment too, like he says those aren't bad, and they're very clearly influenced by probably Sergi, and like I said, I forget the name of the other artist who also did a painting that's top down, right? And maybe Sergi did not have an influence directly of the person that I'm thinking about, but that's how it works. Like we get influenced by one another, you know. It's bound to happen. Even the project in which he's working on, it's just pixel art that has lighting on it, and it's Blade Runner inspired, right? So it's like, what are we to say about that then, you know? But he's doing something really smart. Like their development cycle is very smart. Is that they took a popular genre of like within a cult classic, which is the Blade Runner aesthetic, and then they took like a popular like retro style that people like, which is pixel art, right?
Yeah.
And mashed them together. And that's usually where creativity and uniqueness in the right way, like that to me is like when I told you like meet in the middle, that's like a good meet in the middle kind of aesthetic. That's why it looks so good, right? Like if it was like pixel art and like some sort of obscure kind of like diesel punk that's rarely like looked at, you know, like some sort of obscured like writer made this like story that people don't really know, whatever, then I don't know, you know, it might not have done as well. Pixar art's still pretty popular, but like I don't know, if you created your own kind of like art form and then you put it out there and just is too weird, right, or just not enough familiarity there, it can fall to the wayside. Now, I will add another thing to all this is that it's really actually pretty awesome to build your own audience around your weird shit. Okay? Because there's other people that might like this weird stuff that you do, you know?
Yeah.
And it might not, like, it goes back to that idea of like, you might not have like a larger number than the last artist that has a much bigger number, okay? But if more people follow you, that follow you for that weird stuff, right? You might actually have more of a reliable fan base, you know? And
Oh yeah.
to me, that actually has more value uh, than sticking to like a larger audience. But that's my personal take on that last statement.
Well, no, it makes sense. Like, I think most feel like concept artists compared to illustrators are more interested in appealing to other artists because the work concept art in general is just for like internal purposes anyway. Like, it's not. I know it's a lot of it's not really meant to go in an art book.
Yeah, totally. But anyway, hope that helps you out, man.
No, it's a great answer. Thanks, AJ.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I'll see you at Lightbox, man. I'll be there as well.
Sick. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask because I always had this ambition of doing something with more like fine arts and traditional arts. Do you think it goes
Cool.
together, doing concept art and more like gallery stuff?
Yeah, it just depends. Like, the reason why I generally don't like gallery type stuff is just because it starts to fall into the world of subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Unless your work is like extraordinary. There's a guy that I follow on Instagram, like his name is, but he's not a concept artist, so I guess it doesn't actually fit with the criteria that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But like his name is Miles Johnson. Like he does these like really cool abstract like paintings and drawings.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not a good example because those things are great examples of like good gallery artwork, you know,
Sure.
not like concept and gallery, which is I think what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really just a matter of like what is that you like, and I'm also a big fan of like, you know, I just talked about like how, you know, if you're gonna have like more unique work, you got to find your audience. So that's still true regardless of whatever you do, right? Um, like Jackson Pollock is a great example of what not to do. Okay,
Yeah.
so Jackson Pollock was a drunk, and for very good reasons. Um, he 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 essentially like had like the style of artwork that he really enjoyed and that he thought was art, you know, and he would put it out there, and everyone was like, "Nah, whatever, who cares?" And then he like did that like paint splatter stuff, right? And this
Yeah.
is just kind of like out of a whim. Like he just kind of did it, and it just like stuck, and everyone loved it, and he became famous for these paintings, right?
Yeah.
Um, he would ask people like, "Why do you like this painting? Like these paintings?" And people would be like, "Oh, I like the way that you mix the colors and all the stuff, like the energy that's inside of this. It's impressive. You're ahead of your time, like all this kind of subjective rationale." And it was just like, that's not at all what I was thinking. You're fucking full of shit. And he would just call people out like all the time. Like he'd just be like, everyone's full of shit. Nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about, right? Like, and he just got super drunk and just super depressed because he felt like what he thought was good artwork nobody liked, and what he thought was just like whatever he just like vomited up paint people loved, you know.
Yeah.
And so he ultimately led to his demise, which is very sad. But the point I'm making here, the moral of the story is that when you put a lot of like, if you put a lot of value in what you think has value, and
Mhm.
and it comes to find out no one else likes it, that's a very sad life to live, right? And
Yeah.
so I usually encourage people to make artwork that is generally popular and good to other people too. And if it isn't that popular to other people, then you have to find your audience. And unlike Jackson Pollock, time, like we don't have the problem of exposure. Like we can expose our work much easier with the tools of the internet. You know, we can find our audiences much easier than people like Jackson Pollock, Vincent Van Gogh. Love him or hate him, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like we don't have these issues, and so you just have to take advantage of it. So like my artwork panders to, like my audience is other artists. That is my audience. People see my paintings, they feel expertise. They're like, what in the world? Like, how is this person doing this? You know? And then they find out that I did it also in like 5 minutes. You know, it takes them to a whole nother world of like, how is this possible? You know what I mean?
But you know, if you wanted to, I feel like you could just paint it on the canvas for some reason if you wanted to, and you know, put it in a gallery. That also makes sense, right? Like,
yeah, some of my paintings for sure. No, you're right. But I don't want to paint.
Sure.
Because
no, I get
money and it takes time.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some real money there, but not the kind of money that I like to make. It's so much faster just to paint digitally. And it's cleaner. And I agree though, like if I spent like a good several months, I could probably paint just as good traditionally. And maybe at some point I will actually, because I might get like just want to transcend even further to where I'm at, right? So that's not off the table. It's just as of now, it's not my goal. But you're not wrong. There's opportunity there too.
Cool.
But my point is that, you know, it's up to you to decide whether that's something you want to do, right? And so for me, it's not, but it doesn't mean it's not for you. And so you just got to be realistic is ultimately what I'm getting at, right? Like you have to be prepared for people to not like your stuff for a while. And a good example of this actually is my friend Tiana. She did this. She basically turned a lot of her concepts into these like paintings. Like she had these concept illustrations and she just actually painted them. And they're really cool. She got a gallery, but I don't know if she's making a living from that. And if she is, it's great. If she's not, like it's just gonna take some more time. Eventually she'll get there.
Sure. Because for now I thought maybe I will, you know, keep concept art as a day job. That's the plan, and maybe try to do something after work.
That's great. No, that's good stress, man. Like you just gotta be realistic. Like you don't want to fall into that stereotype of the starving artist is what I'm trying to get at. Right?
Yeah, I think it's not a good way. I think it's too stressful and it just leads to frustration.
Yeah, like especially in that sense, because it's incredibly subjective, that world, where concept art is very, very, very a lot more objective. Like if I'm working on a pirate video game, I just got to draw dope pirates. You know what I mean? And that's obtainable. You know, there's a way to critique that. There's a way to know whether I did a good job or not. If I'm painting some sort of like piece that has a commentary on society, that's a lot harder to nail.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? But like I think, but to your point, like there are pieces of my work that I never had these intentions. They're just my thoughts vomited into digital pixels. Like this, for instance, this could be converted potentially, and it's just like one of those things you can buy at IKEA and just put on. You know what I mean? Like there's a market of just like cool images. They don't really necessarily have like some sort of larger meaning. I think I would fit in that category. People would be asking like, "What were you thinking when you painted this?" It's like I was just trying to learn how to draw a more forced perspective. You know. I was looking at some of my favorite artists, getting some inspiration. You know, oh really? Like it's not a commentary on the. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something of like the male body and how it's over sexualized, masculinity. It's like no, I just like beards, like and muscular men. They're fun to paint.
Yeah,
it's just that's what it is. But yeah. That would be with Jackson Pollock, and when people start to try to break down like the psychology behind it.
I think they just push it too far. But you know, there is some like legit. There are some legit artworks. I think like there is this guy Zin Lim, I think, and he paints it's like realistic, but has some expressive parts to it, and it looks great and it's skillful. You know, there is no bullshit. I like it personally.
Yeah, there's an artist named Jeremy Geddes that does this. Phil Hale is another popular example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably fall into those camps of like the skillful painter, and then trying to make paintings that people would like to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you, man.
Cool. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Any other questions? It's hard trying to maintain the energy and the colors, but also try to blend it.
Yeah, I got one. So how hard did you work when you were starting?
I work too hard.
Oh,
All right. Next
because right
question.
now
I'm just kidding.
I'm doing like yeah, right now I'm just doing like 6 hours a day.
Oh, that's great. That's actually good. I actually recommend around like 6 hours as a good staple. Any more than that, I think actually you started to push working too hard. But when I first started, I was working like 12-hour days. But that's because I was super competitive. I was just like, I need to get good. I remember thinking like there's all these 12-year-olds on Instagram, DeviantArt, who are like painting circles around me.
Yeah.
I'm already like 23. I'm like, dude, I got to get up there. And that was my mentality for why I painted so crazy and vigorously. But I wouldn't recommend it. I think there was a lot of diminishing returns, right? And I don't think I was painting effectively either. I don't think that helped. Like I was doing a lot of bad habits type stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I usually recommend against that kind of workload. I'm a bigger fan of like just consistent work rather than like just a lot of it. All right. In fact, I like to try to redefine hard work to more of this idea of like that you should just do things that are hard, but you shouldn't work to the point where you're really tired all the time. You know, like like what this means is that let's say you spend those 6 hours like you're doing, right? So instead of just spending 12 hours painting like things that aren't that challenging for you, right? I think it'd be better to spend 4 hours painting nothing but challenging things. You know what I mean? That's more useful to you than 12 hours of just kind of like painting things that you're used to painting or things that like just putting the time in. Now, again, that still is actually a very good tactic. Okay. Like just the brute force approach, that still works. Okay. It's just like I'm saying, it's just not healthy.
Okay, yeah, because I thought I could just do. I feel like I could paint a little bit more. But I was like, is 6 hours enough or no?
Yeah, it's good. If you feel comfortable, like if you feel like you're improving and all that stuff, then there's really no need to fix it.
Okay.
You know? And I understand the sense of rushing, but like another way to think about this is that like when you are working out, when people work out, they don't like work out to the point of like overexertion because you'll break bones, rip muscles, right? And that's the same mentality that I have about painting. Like you don't want to do the same thing but with your mental health. Make sense?
Yep, got it.
Do you have any tips for working on stuff while you're traveling?
Like give me an example of like a problem.
Let's say you have to like go somewhere for a week and you have like your laptop and a tablet. Is it just like do the work there, or is there anything you can do to make the process better? Or it's just kind of like suck it up?
Yeah, I think it's a suck it up thing. I'm not very good at this either, so I can't really give too much advice. But what I would do, like what I have been doing that has been helping me get better at this, because I do have a lot of work that I do and I need to get done regardless if I'm traveling, is just try to like plan as much ahead, like try to find spots that you're going to be able to hang out, like try not to improvise too much, you know? Because if you do that, like if you're like, I'll just bring my laptop and I'll figure out when I get there, you're going to get there and everything's going to be foreign to you and you're just not going to make the time. I think that's just what happens with me all the time. Right?
Right.
So for me, for instance, yeah, like I would do this a lot. And so what for instance, like I would just be like, okay, when I go there, I'll just like set some time aside. But when I was in El Paso, when I knew like, okay, I need like this time so I can teach, I made sure I went and like paid attention to when I can do it. I told my mom and dad, like it was a little bit more clear, you know?
Right.
But then the problem was that I didn't do that for my work. So that ultimately made me fall behind like a whole week, right?
Right.
So I had to push my class in general. And so like I think what I learned from that and from my experiences even when I was in Tokyo, same thing happened. It's just plan ahead, you know, and have like a real schedule to when you're going to work and where are you potentially going to work. Like, so if you know where you're going to be, like see if they have an office or see if your friends, what they're going to be doing. Like, hey, like, what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to party like hard or whatever. Then, okay, maybe I should think about, everyone's going to probably be hungover. We'll all be sleeping. Maybe I shouldn't drink as much, but let me say I will. So then maybe like 3 or 2 in the day after lunch, I'm just going to be out of commission. Like whatever they're doing, like just ignore it. I have to do this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then when I'm done, like around 5 or 6, then I can go back out into the world or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm still kind of figuring it out too, so I can't tell you if this works like perfectly every time.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I just been to Canada, so I've kind of been struggling with that, just figuring out what to do. But those are all great tips.
Yeah. Just plan ahead is, like I said, I think that's probably the best advice I can give. Because so far that's been working for me out of all the things I've tried. But definitely improvising is not one of those. So if you're like in Canada, like maybe just like go to Starbucks or something or some sort of like coffee shop and just take yourself away from the environment. There's like this idea of like the two door rule where you walk through 2 doors and it'll make you more productive.
Huh.
Meaning that like if you walk through that front door of your house and then you go through another door like an office space or a coffee shop, you know, then your mind separates the environment in a way that makes you feel like you should be more productive now. That makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a 2 location thing, not necessarily a 2 door. So like if you leave your bedroom to your bathroom, that's not what I mean. What it means is like leaving your house to like another location, you know, like a 2 doors in like 2 entries of 2 different locations. And this apparently like works even like for like if you have like an outdoor patio like or a guest house. It's the same kind of concept, but like the whole idea is that you remove yourself from the distractions.
Right. Huh. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Oh, what the? Did Jesus bounce out? Oh no, you're still here. I just wanted to say thank you, EJ. What are you guys talking about there? All right. Yeah. You're welcome, man. Of course. I appreciate
Hey,
it. Yes.
I got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So for artists that are starting out, are freelance jobs much harder to land than in-house ones? Because I live in Egypt and
Dope.
it's definitely much harder to like travel abroad.
Absolutely. So my advice is still the same. You know, like, so remember how I was talking about maybe in the past that there's only two things that you guys can control, and that is the quality of your work and the people that you know.
Yeah, true.
Okay. A lot of other things you don't really have as much control over. Okay. And I want to use the example of like, okay, so when we think about uh, like working and society has kind of taught us this idea of like, you know, to get a job, you have to go to school, you got to do this, whatever the things are, right? There's all sorts of like rules of engagement apparently to be successful, you know?
Yeah.
And most of those are lies, as most of you guys have probably experienced throughout just living your life. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the things that I like to try to give, like the advice that I try to give, is the advice that I know is practically practically reliable. Okay. And the only and this is not changed in the years of me teaching. And it really is just these few factors of quality of work, people you know. So you asked me, is it harder or easier to get work as a freelancer? That's a yes and no or maybe kind of question. You get it?
Uh-huh.
It depends on your environment, the quality of the work, the uh, the location, you know, all this stuff. But the quality of your work is still that maintaining factor. And so if you have a good body of work and you have expanded your network, whether you do that on social networks or you go to events and talk to people, whatever you do to build those networks, right? All you can really do, the only thing you like, what those do, like those two things that I talked about, all that really does is it just increases your chances. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's all it really does. It just increases your chances to get an opportunity, whether it's in-house or not, because there might be visa problems for you. This makes it much harder for you than, let's say, some of the other students in this class, right? But if your work's really, really good and you've made a really good friend, like you made friends with the executive at Blizzard, right? And he's like, we need you to work with us. Then your chances of working at Blizzard now have increased dramatically, regardless of the visa problem. You know what I mean? But that's still a problem. That's still going to be a thing that you're going to deal with that maybe a lot of other people won't, right?
True.
You increase your chances of those opportunities happening, right? If you have really good work and you post like a really cool video, like Kim Jong-ji, that's what happened with him. Like he's been epic for years, you know, way before people started realizing that he was epic. You see my point? He just posted one painting or one drawing of him online doing a thing, and it just went viral. And now he's like world renowned artist traveling the world, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny because like when people first saw him, they're just like, how do you get so good? It's like he drew a lot. You just didn't know he did that. Nobody knew who he was before he became popular. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if we met him when he first started, he was very novice, just like many of us, right? He's not special. He's just really devoted. He is so devoted, man. Like he draws more than most people. Like he draws even while he's being interviewed, you know? Like I don't draw that much. That's crazy. He draws like so much. So of course he's like epic beyond all reason, you know? But that's the problem that he suffered before, because he was just like really popular amongst his own community. And then when that happened, he became internationally known. Now he's doing interviews. He's going around the world. He's doing like these $20,000, $100,000 murals for large studios. You know, like his life has completely changed because of one factor. The quality was always there, but his desert island, right, that he had all his amazing paintings like living on, someone built a highway to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now everybody can drive there and see what's going on over there. You know what I mean? it's why impoverished cultures and communities stay impoverished is not because poor people are poor. It's because they have well, I mean that's part of it, but one of the biggest is the infrastructure. Infrastructure of like technology, infrastructure of distributing foods, resources. When you don't have these things in place, it makes harder. It makes your society. It has a harder time of growing out of whatever it's in. Egypt is even one of those examples where when they had Facebook, they were able to, from what I remember, they were able to coordinate the protests.
Yeah, true. That happened.
Yeah, like that wasn't a thing they could have done before. But when you create that infrastructure, then you can start doing things that could better your society, right?
Yeah.
And so like just treat your artwork like a third world country. Like you need to build that infrastructure. Like you need people to come and give like trade with you. If that makes sense. But in an intellectual way, like trade your ideas, trade like artwork, business cards. You know what I mean? These are the
Yeah.
kind of things I'm talking about. And then it will be harder or easier depending on how much you do of that. Is what I'm getting at ultimately. Now, is it harder? Because for me, it is. It is not hard at all. I don't have enough of like it wasn't hard for me even when I was starting out. Not because it was like I was this badass artist, because I was very, very active. And so I don't know if it's harder or easier in a real sense that could help you, because I was constantly driving for it. I was working very hard on my artwork. I would go to every and all events that were near me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just did it so often that I like jobs just came. I live in Southern California. I'm an American. These help,
Yeah, true.
And so I can't give you any advice that like, oh yeah, it's easier to get freelance, and then you like never get freelance. And I'm like, oh, it's easier to get studio work, and then you never get studio work. AJ was a liar. Because I might have been. I might be lying to you. I might not actually know if it's easier or harder. What I can speak to about freelance, like the differences of like what it's like to work in freelance, I can talk a little bit about that right now. I know the differences like for studio work, from freelance, working for film, for games, because I experienced that. And some things are just pretty universal. It wouldn't be too crazy for me to give you some insight, you know? But the other stuff, like I would suggest you would potentially need to be the pioneer of that. I would look at other artists who have left or who stay in Egypt and work, see if you can find them. If they don't exist, then I guess you're going to be the one. You're going to be the one to answer these questions for the future Egyptians. Okay. Which, there's always got to be one, the first. You might be the first, but I doubt it. I know a couple of Egyptian artists. And so just research and figure out who these people are. I forget their names. So if they stumble upon them again, I'll send them their work. I don't know them personally. I just know of them. I know because one person he worked with, Carlo, over at, I think he might have been a contractor, but he worked at Insomniac. I loved his work too. I used to follow his blog, and I remember he was from Egypt.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, like the advice I've given though is the best advice I can give. It works. Having good work, making good friends, just works. I remember because I had one of my students, now close friend. He always made the complaint of like, in Serbia, there's nothing. In Serbia, there's nobody here. Like, we'll never have opportunities. And like, he just keeps getting jobs, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? and like, it's so funny because I was like, you keep getting jobs though. Like, you keep going to these events. You're making friends with all these great artists, and they're hooking you up. Like, you're doing exactly what I told you would work. It's like, you're not wrong. Serbia, there's probably nothing there, but it clearly didn't matter. And then him and his friend, they made a studio out in Serbia. So they're building that industry there, which is cool.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah, Andre from Trojan Horses and Unicorn, like he wanted to build an event in Portugal because it wasn't there, and he did. He built one of the largest art gatherings ever in the world. He took it out of Portugal too, because Portugal was like, nah, we don't really care. And he's like, all right then, F you guys, I'm just gonna take it out of here. And he's now making it like an international event. But another great example of just like taking matters in your own hands. Anywho, any other questions? I can take one more and I'll let you guys go. All right, folks. It has been an honor. What?
Just a quick one.
How
I was just waiting if someone else asked. All right.
How dare you?
What's it like at a studio? Because
Oh,
in
yeah,
my mind, I think it's like 9 to 5. You paint with a couple meetings and like a lunch break. Is that?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, it's pretty accurate. It's a job, right? So, working at a studio, you show up and you work like a good 8 hours, right? Because it's just kind of like, especially in American culture, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Right. And so I never really worked 8 hours, but I'm a different breed of artist. And I'll explain what that was like or what I did. But essentially, yeah, you show up and it's different for every studio. You know, sometimes you have a meeting every day. Sometimes you have a meeting once a week, you know, or even like whatever. But like, it's pretty much what you would expect. Like, it's like they'll come in the first day, you know, you think there's some training or prep. No, they usually just start you off with like some early concepts. Like they'll be like, hey, can you design some civilians or some crates, you know? And you design like small stuff. And then you do that for like the first week or two. And then once you start feeling comfortable and they can see kind of how you're working, they're all right, like now we want you to work on this. And it's just like that. The thing that I think people don't expect much of is that it is just like a grind. Like they just come in, they review, and then you just do it. And you're not going to get like insightful criticism and paid over sometimes. It very much could be just like, oh, this is cool, like just do more of this, you know. They might be like, we like the shapes of this. It sometimes might not be very articulate. So that's why like teaching you guys how to iterate is a really good strategy. So it's a great way for you guys to kind of help them. A lot of times people don't know what they want, but they'll know it when they see it, type of thing. And so you just kind of give them a lot of stuff to see. But yeah, just have a lot of stuff to show at every meeting, right? If it's every day, then like if they're asking for like a couple characters, then I would do like 3 or 4 character iterations a day, you know, until we land on something, and then they'll be, oh, this was great, and then I'll just polish it until they say it's done. And then after that, you do orthographics and then send it out, and then you work on the next thing. You just get it done. You're a cog in a machine. Okay. Yeah, you're the first line of defense, right? You're cheaper. It's cheaper to pay you to make changes than it is to tell the modeling team to make changes, followed by the animators, the riggers, the compositors, right? Because there's like so many people that will have to make changes now because of that one big change. Like I'm working on this music video thing, and like I was just like, oh my gosh, like this shot needs to be refilmed, but it's too late. It's already filmed, you know?
Yeah.
I'd said this to them too. I was like in the next situation, like if this happens again, like I would like to kind of see what you guys are thinking, because this shot actually should be more like this. And they're like, well, you know, we can't do it because we already filmed it, and this is the final shot. We have to keep it. We don't have time to change. And so like then you have to like solve problems for that. Then, you know, okay, so this is a static thing we can't make changes to, you know. But yeah, it's like 9 to 5. You have lunch, you have breaks, and then you go home. As a concept artist, we don't crunch nearly as much because we're usually on the front end. Crunch usually happens during production, towards the end, and sometimes during the middle, and sometimes the end. Middle usually because like events like E3 and stuff like that, so they want to have something to showcase. And then when the shipping of the game, that's when it starts ramping up. But usually by that time we're on a different project, depending on the studio. We're like working on the next title. because we're in pre-production. We're before they even get started. Usually, sometimes you're like right in the trenches with them, but even then you don't crunch because concepts aren't production. You know, concepts like will help the production artist, but if they're like at crunch, it's because they need to make it done already. Like the idea is already approved potentially, and they just need to finish it. So I remember like when I was like at the studios when they would crunch, and I would like be leaving at like a reasonable hour, and everyone's like still like in the midst of like hardcore working, and I know they're gonna stay for another 4 or 5 hours. Then it's like, oh man, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but like for me, like so I'm a different beast because I paint much faster, especially towards the end of my career. Well, not the end, but towards like more frequent stages of my career. Like right now, for instance, like the last 4 or 5 years, I painted really fast. So when I was at Blizzard, I would technically only work like 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours a day. But I would be there the whole day because I just needed to be. But I technically only needed to be 4 hours. I would show up at like 8 in the morning, and then I'll just like do Gumroad tutorials, and then I would play League of Legends till like 10:30, and then people start showing up, and then I'll do like maybe a little bit of sketching, and then it'll be lunch, and then I go to lunch for like an hour, and then I'll go work. Well, I would work out first, and then I'll work out for about an hour, and then eat lunch for about another hour. So I had like a 2-hour lunch, and then I would show up at work around like 2:30. And then 2:30 to 3 o'clock, and then I would work from 3 to 4:30, which is about an hour and a half of work, and that would be when my meeting is. And then we had daily, so I'd meet every day, and then I would show my work, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is great," and then I'll make changes or make new designs, whatever, and then I would work till around like 6 after the meeting, so that'll be like another 2 to 3 hours, and I would work on what they suggested to change, so it would actually technically already be done by the time I left work, which will be around like 6:30, you know?
Damn,
and so then when I show up the next day, I feel really relaxed because even if they came to my desk, I would have a lot of work already to show, you know? And that extra hour before was just more like just double checking and make sure if I could add more changes, you know?
Yeah.
So the advantage of speed is very clear, you know? Like if it wasn't clear before, that's a great story to tell to make it clear. Even they would pull me aside and be like, because they thought I wasn't working, and I was like, no, I'm working. And then they gave me more work because of that. They realized that I was working so fast, and so they'll take tasks off of other artists, and make me do it. So I ended up like working on like a lot of different things. Yeah. If you have my full attention, you can get a lot of work out of me, you know? And that's what they were doing. They're like, "Oh shit, this guy's super fast," which is a curse in circumstance. So now I make it very clear to people who hire me that like I charge daily, and I charge based off of what I consider a day's worth of work, and a day's worth of work could potentially be between 2 to 3 hours of work for me.
Yeah.
And the way I think about it is that even if I did it in 2 hours, you know, I'm providing the quality of work that they would get from another artist that would take them 10 hours.
Even longer.
Yeah. And so the turnarounds are better this way. I'm more comfortable. Like you don't want to like stress out your artist and make them work like a complete 8 hours just to get the time in. Cause then I'm like, it's diminishing returns. It's like if I do like 100 images, then there's a potential option paralysis where there's too many options, you know?
Yeah.
Plus, I might not even be making new changes that are relevant or useful. And so it's like you're paying for the experience more so than you're paying for the time. Anyway.
All right.
Cool.
Goals.
What does it say a second? Maybe they didn't tell anyone 100 hours, but they definitely told us 80 concept artists were sitting and being.
Oh, I was just talking about Rockstar. You know, you're saying concept artists don't usually crunch. That's what I thought as well. But then I remember reading when Rockstar was doing Red Dead 2, because they expected everyone to be there for ages, right? The concept artists had nothing to do, so they were just QA.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if they want to like use my time to play video games and test it out and stuff, yeah, sure. I would say no. I'm not qualified. but and I don't want to do that. You know, I'm not paid to be a Q&A person, so I would definitely say no to them. I've done this before. I've like told producers, like, I'm working. Like, if I don't do what you're asking, because like people would complain that I wouldn't be there, but like I have all the work done. It's not my fault that I'm fast. I mean, it is my fault because I've trained for it. But you know what I'm getting at. Like, don't punish me because I'm super efficient painter and designer, you know? And luckily for me, all my producers, whenever I explain this to them, they're like, that makes perfect sense. You know, never have they been like, just do work for the sake of it. I was like, no, just if you want
because it just
me,
sounds like that was a rock star.
yeah, it's stupid, man. It creates a bad culture too. You want your employees to be happy. Like, you only say this type of thing if like the employee is not submitting work. So what ended up happening, I'll end up the story and I'll send you guys out into the world, is that I would work on like the effects for the WoW movie, and my director would come to my desk and I'd be working on personal work, and then he'd be like, what the? And I'm like, oh, you want to look at the effects? Okay. And I pull it up and it would be like several drawings of effects, right? So it's not like one drawing, it'd be like a lot of them, like iterations, you know? And he's like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is cool. This is cool. Like, maybe we can do more of this, whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then he'll leave. And like 3 hours later, he'll show up at my desk just to see what progress I made. And again, I'll be doing personal work. And he's like, what? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, no, here, let me show you what I did. And then I open up the file again, you know, and it's like more, it's more work, right? Like a lot more. And he's just like, what the? And then, but I think he was still kind of frustrated with the idea that I was like, you know what I mean? Like, he just didn't like the idea that I was working on personal work. And so he made the complaint to my producer. So she pulled me aside and she was like, yeah, you know, so-and-so is making complaints that you're not doing enough work. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, every time he shows up, he's very happy with what I've given him. I think it is just that he just sees me do personal work and just feels like I'm not working. He's like, but I'm done. Like, he tells me to do like 5 variations. I've done 5 variations. What do you want me to do? Like 5 more? And that might not be useful, you know? And it's like, don't you think it's better use of my time that I try to get better as an artist if I feel like I'm already done with my work? So I'm still, you know, at my job. I'm not like leaving, but I'm like, you know, it's like in-house training, like on the job training, you know? And I'm only getting better. I'm becoming more efficient. I'm thinking like I'm practicing things, and it's also a win-win because then I get to also practice things that I care about, you know? And then she was just like, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. And she then came back and told then she asked me then like what I could, like, what can we do to get the best out of my time? And I was like, well, for one, you know, this director just needs to come to my desk more reliably, because he just comes randomly, right? But if he comes at a certain time, like, I'll just be ready. I'll just have the stuff out so that it makes him feel better, you know? And or just give me like maybe one more thing to work on, you know? And she's like, okay. So then she approached him and she told him all this stuff. And I think he still wasn't buying it. So then he was like trying to surprise me. Like, he's okay, he's going to meet me at 12, right? And so he would show up at like 12, you know? I'm sorry, not 12. He would show up at like 10:30 or something, you know? Like an hour and a half earlier to catch me off guard, you know? And I would be working on personal stuff. And then he was like, yeah, like I could feel like in his mind, he was like, got him. This guy's totally a procrastinator. And then I'm like, oh, what's up, dude? And then I pulled up all the concepts. I was like, I thought we were meeting at 12. He was like, nah, you know, I had nothing to do. Like, so I thought I'd just stop by, see what you were working on. I was like, all right, well, here's what I've gotten. And again, it was like a lot of designs. And then he was just like, what the? He's like, are you serious? Like, did you really do this morning? And I was like, yeah, I showed up. I just did it. He's like, how long does it take you to do some of these concepts? And I said, oh, probably like 10 to 15 minutes per effect, you know? And then he was just like, wait, really? Yeah. So I was like, yeah. So you're asking me like do 3 or 4 effects That's only about like an hour of work. So I was into work at like 9, so I was already done, you know. And then he was just like, okay, like I've been underutilizing you. And so then what he did is that he ultimately took like there's 3 other artists that were working on effects. He took all of them off of effects and put me on all the effects for the WoW movie, essentially. And then, and only then, did I actually start working like every hour of the day, you know. And but that was a good use of my time, because then I'm like doing all the effects. I needed to actually put the time in, you know what I mean? But like I just came up with like strategies. Like my buddy showed me some cool stuff too. Like this made me more efficient. My buddy Mateus showed me like how to use gradient maps in a really effective way. Right? Like let me show you like right now. Like so as I was talking, I've done this, and you can just pull up gradient maps that you've made, and bam, effects. Right? And I'll do cool stuff like this. I wouldn't just paint it. Like I usually go paint it to design like the shape of the spell or the abilities. But I'll use photo textures all the time. Like I'll use whatever I felt like was cool imagery. So I'd like take something like this and like throw it in there. See that? It's pretty cool, right? And then like I'm not done. We'll just get some more cool stuff in here. This could be cool. Let's see what I can do with this. You know? But you get the idea. And then I'll just have stuff like this, and he'd just be like, what in God's name? Like, how are you doing this? And then he'll say stuff like, so like if you give me feedback, he'll be like, you know, this feels a little too orange. Maybe we can like add some more reds in there. And so I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then he'll like walk away, and then I'll just like go in here and just change the gradient map to be more red. Right. And I would design it in a way that would emulate whatever feedback he gave me. And maybe he felt like the webbing was too much, so then I'll just say, okay, yeah, I can knock them down. Like it's all like non-destructive approach. So like even feedback would be even faster if he already kind of liked the shapes. Like it doesn't. It's like I'm gonna be done with it like literally 5 minutes after he walks away from my desk. You know. So I was fast in this capacity. I just had a lot of tricks on my sleeve. So yeah, I mean, like for me, my experience with studio life, maybe at Sony was like the very much the way that I explained it. It's like a 9 to 5, but all the other experiences after that, because I started getting really fast at Sony, and then I worked at Fireforge, a smaller studio, and I got even faster there. And then after that, I just was like speed demon. But all that took me about like 5 years to get like start to really perfect my abilities as a painter. You know, and by the time I got Blizzard, I was already really fast painter.
Anyway. Cool, got an extra lesson.
Yeah. Great question. Freelance life is very similar. The only thing different is that it's on you're the one that's creating the schedule. So the problem with that is that if you're really like flaky dude, and like when you work at a studio, it's different, right? Like you have to show up, you know, and that accountability is sometimes will counteract your flakiness if you have it in you. But if you don't have that accountability within you and you don't have a place to go, then you have to learn how to do that. Like that was definitely me. I had to like train myself to be better at that. So that's the only difference. But freelance, the same idea. It's like you just do work, you submit it. They don't know how long you work. It's a little bit more free in that way. So I prefer freelance in the sense that like I can hide my speed, if that makes sense. Nobody knows the difference other than like people who know who I am, right? But most of my clients don't. They just see my work and go, nah, we want this guy to work with us. But I'm working with Riot. They do know that I'm fast. They watched me in the speed painting competition. But I'm an art director anyway, so it's not really a matter of like they need me to paint. They need me to paint over and give feedback artistically. So anyway, cool beans, y'all. Hope you guys had a great class. I enjoyed all of you guys. You guys are great peeps, great human beings. I appreciate you. I hope the class taught you a lot. I know for me, it's always a pleasure to see the up and comings, the next wave of badass concept artists, and even just being a part of that is always inspiring and motivational. I appreciate you guys deeply. Keep trying the best you can to do the best work you can and try to get those jobs. My advice, just keep yourself persistent, consistent. Don't get distracted too often. And yeah, man, I'm always around too. You guys can like ping me on Instagram, especially on Instagram. I've been using Instagram really well. Or even like email me if you guys have some larger questions. It does take a little bit longer for me to get to you, but I will get to you, I promise, at some point, especially if you keep bugging me. But with that being said, talk to you guys later. And yeah, cheers, y'all. Have a good day. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.